Hello everyone, today I want to give a brief lecture on the political philosophy of John Rawls. John Rawls is a 20th century philosopher who is primarily interested in the question of justice. Rawls asks what makes a society, what makes a government, what makes an economy just. In Rawls's view, a just society would be a fair society. This is his idea that we can understand justice as fairness. So, if we want to know whether our society is just, the question is it fair? Now, for Rawls, the easiest way to determine whether or not our society was fair would simply be to ask people within our society whether they think it's fair. The problem is that we are all going to be shaped and influenced by our position within our society. So, those who are benefiting from social rules, or people who are doing well in our society, are more likely to think that it's fair. Those who are maybe not benefiting from our social rules are more likely to believe that our society is unfair or unjust. So for Rawls, the way to really get at this question is to come up with a way that we can avoid those kind of impressions that our social position would give us. In other words, we need to come up with some kind of neutral perspective. The way that we can do this, according to Rawls, is by engaging in a thought experiment. Similar to the way Hobbes or Locke talked about imagining a state of nature, Rawls says, let's imagine that we are in what he calls the original position. From the original position, we are behind what Rawls calls the veil of ignorance. Behind the veil of ignorance, we don't know any personal details about ourselves. We don't know how old we are. We don't know our gender. We don't know our race, we don't know our jobs, we don't know our education level, we don't know if we're religious believers or not. We don't know anything about ourselves. All we know is that we, like everyone else, are rational. As rational individuals, there are things we care about, there are goals we want to pursue, and we will have an interest in pursuing them. So, what Rawls has done is basically said, imagine that you could be any person within society. If you could be any person and you don't know which one you are, what kind of rules would you think are fair? What kind of rules would you think are just? Now, Rawls argues that from behind this veil of ignorance, there are exactly two general rules that we would agree to as being fair, and these he calls the principle of justice. The first principle is that everyone should have access to the maximum amount of liberty consistent with everyone else having the same access. In other words, every one of us should be able to pursue our goals, do the things that we want, as long as in pursuing those goals we are not harming others, we are not violating the rights of others. The second principle is that we will not allow economic inequality unless it can be shown that that economic inequality is to everyone's advantage. So if the economic inequality is only to the advantage of the rich, it will not be just. But if there are some kinds of economic inequality that are to the advantage of everyone, then we could agree that that's fair. So the idea is what we try to do is try to say, since I don't know which person in our society I'm going to become, I want to create a world that is best for everybody. I want to create a world that no matter what position I end up occupying, I can live a good life and be the kind of person that I want to be. According to Rawls, the way we would ensure that is by agreeing on these two principles of justice. So, in essence, a society will be just or it will be fair when it fits or follows the two principles of justice. If it fails to follow any of them, then we would say that that society is unjust, and we need to make changes in order to bring it in line with those two principles of justice.